Well, it's about damn time, isn't it? I've been asked to make this video for several months now. Many requests by you. And yeah, I broke. You got me. It's finally here, so let's do this. So by the end of this video, you're gonna know step by step how I make my multi-track videos, and hopefully you'll learn something today. But everything here is sequential and it relates to each other, so make sure you watch the video all the way to the end. If you miss something, you're gonna have a hard time. Don't skip, or I will call the police. And also between each section, I'm gonna tell you a really terrible dad joke, so you don't wanna miss out on that. And also real quick, make sure you hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, because I make new videos every week just for you. And if you have any questions about the content in this video, or if you have any suggestions for future videos, make sure you leave a comment down below. And the more people who engage with this video, the more the algorithm does its magic, so I get to help more people out if you hit that like button. So just do it. And also I created a free multi-track guide. First time I'm announcing this. Links in the description. It's absolutely free, no strings attached, and it gets sent right to your inbox. It's packed with free tips and tricks about learning how to create multi-track videos, and some of those tips and tricks aren't going to be covered in this video. So make sure you download that for more information. And there is no other resource like it. It's one of a kind. Alright, let's get started, shall we? So my first step is arranging whichever song or piece I feel like arranging that week. So for arranging, I use Sibelius. I used to have the full version with the whole 40 gigabyte sound library, but I lost it all when I bought a new computer. Very sad times. So I just used the $100 version of Sibelius, and it still does the job just fine. Although the playback isn't as glamorous as it used to be, and I don't really ever plan on writing big 30-staff symphonies anytime in the near future. My work is almost 100% chamber music, brass bands, popular rock charts. So this version of Sibelius does the job just fine. And what I really like about Sibelius is that it's extremely user-friendly, and that's huge for me. I like to be able to plug it in and just go. I really don't like spending hundreds of hours on YouTube tutorials just to learn how to use a piece of software. So Sibelius is just very easy to figure out. You can plug it in and you can just go. You can skip all the tutorials like you're playing a video game, and you can figure out how to use it just fine. And that's really what I like about it. Other industry standard notation software include Finale and Dorico, which both are great, so I've heard. I've actually tried Dorico a couple months ago, but I gave up because I was just so used to all the hotkeys and the workflow of Sibelius that I just didn't want to make the switch. But that's just personal preference right there. So for arranging, I listen to the piece or the tune and start transcribing. I almost always start with the bass line. I leave the score in C despite the trumpet being a B-flat instrument. Most of the time, there's piccolo trumpet and A, E-flat trumpet, but it's in B-flat most of the time. But I leave the score in C just to make transcribing easier, so that I don't have to make that switch in my head. Everything that I'm hearing that's being transcribed is written in concert pitch on the staff. And then I just click a switch and it all transposes itself later. So I just have to remember that the lowest note I can write in the bass part is a concert E3, because the written F-sharp 3 is the lowest note that a B-flat trumpet can play. So yeah, I'll start with transcribing the bass line, and I start with the bass line because this is where I decide if I'm going to leave the arrangement in the original key, like the original song, or if I'm going to put it in a different key. If the original bass line fits the range of the trumpet, then I'll leave it be. But if it doesn't work, I might bump it up a step or a third. Also, I try to avoid having keys that are really icky for brass players. If the original song is in F-sharp, for example, I might bump it up a half step or semitone to make it F major or G major. Nice friendly keys for brass instruments. Because I don't want people to buy my arrangements and it to be just a nightmare to play. I want people to have fun. So after transcribing the bass line, I'll move on to the melody, and then finally I'll move on to the inner voices. With just a quartet like this, there isn't a whole lot of room for creativity. The second and third part mostly just provide the harmonic and rhythmic support, but I do like to have my own flair whenever I can because I don't want my arrangements to just be brass-colored copies of the originals. And then I usually add all the details at the end, such as dynamics, tempo markings, style markings, articulations. My workflow can sometimes vary depending on the piece. And arranging is usually the hardest part for me because the quality of the overall product really depends on whether the arrangement is good or not. So I definitely put the most time into arranging than anything else in this process. Alright, that pretty much sums it up with arranging. Now here's a terrible joke. How do you tell if a vampire is sick? By how much he coughing. Right, sorry for the cringe there. Moving on to recording. This is the fun part, yay! So I export all the parts of my arrangement onto one document and then airdrop that document onto my iPad. And then I use Fourscore to read sheet music and flip through the pages. It's an awesome app, get it if you don't have it. And I have a fancy little foot pedal right there for turning pages, so I never have to pull my hand off the instrument and touch the screen. And if I ever need to switch instruments like trumpet, piccolo trumpet, to flugelhorn, etc., I'll usually record them on a separate track, since it will usually need to be compressed or EQ'd differently. More on that later. Or even if I put a mute in, I'll put it on an entirely different track for the exact same reason. And if I ever mess up or have a bunch of rest that I want to skip over, I'll go back and reset and make all of my splices on the spot. And you can see me doing that a couple times here. The microphone I record on nowadays is an AKG C414, very industry standard large diaphragm condenser mic. I've also recorded with a Shure SM57 and a Behringer C1, it's a budget condenser, in the past. The interface I use is a Behringer UM2, just a simple one-channel interface. It doesn't give me any problems, and that's really all I care about in an audio interface. The interface then plugs into my computer and records directly onto Logic Pro, which is the DAW, or digital audio workstation, that I use to record all of my projects. Also, excellent options for DAWs include Pro Tools and Ableton, so if you don't have a Mac like me, I highly recommend one of those too. Alright, so moving on. But first, here's another horrible joke for you. Why do seagulls fly over the sea? Because if they flew over the bay, they would be bagels. Next step is to mix the audio. As I just mentioned, I use Logic Pro, but Pro Tools and Ableton are also excellent options. There are also free DAWs like GarageBand and Ableton, but I'd recommend upgrading if you're trying to make something really sound professional here. As you can see, there's a lot of splicing and multiple takes here. The reason for this is because simply I don't really actually practice any of my arrangements unless they're really hard and I have to. But I'm usually able to sight read everything pretty well. But if I make a mistake, I'll just go back and pick up at the phrase I just left off and do my splicing. The tracks are in order as shown as the score. And as for plugins, it's all pretty basic stuff. I have a noise gate here to eliminate background noise. Sounds of spit, slide, valves moving, clicking, all that. I don't want to hear that in the final mix. Then I have pitch correction. I try to avoid this whenever possible because I like to think I play pretty well in tune anyway. But when I use flugelhorns, and this arrangement I am using flugelhorns as an all flugelhorn arrangement, the flugelhorn I have right now is kind of a piece of shit. So the pitch correction is actually really helps with that. And pitch correction is used more than you think. And pitch correction, when used correctly, it makes an already good performance just sound a little bit better. If you use it to try to fix a bad performance, you're gonna sound like T-Pain. Not saying that T-Pain is bad, I'm just saying it's going to sound artificial, it's not gonna sound natural. And I have some compression and EQ, which is almost always used when recording brass, since brass instruments can get pretty harsh at times and those adjustments are needed. All the tracks are also panned just to make it so it's spread out, as if all the players were standing in an arc on stage. That's usually how I picture it. I then bust it all to a reverb. The reverb always varies depending on the piece. Classical stuff usually needs more, so it sounds like it's in a concert hall, so it's in that right context. Popular and commercial stuff usually use less, but it really all depends on the vibe that you're going for. And flugelhorns, like I'm using for this example, so all flugelhorns usually really benefit from wetness. As for mastering, still pretty basic stuff. I have another EQ and compressor here for the overall big picture. I have a stereo spread for some imaging, just to spread things out all nice and give everything some space. Sometimes I'll add some fancy things like an exciter, sub bass, or sometimes even a directional mixer for some extra imaging. Lastly comes the limiter, which makes it so the entire mix isn't peaking, so that, for example, you can turn the volume to the max on your car so it still sounds clean. Highly discouraged actually doing that though, because you don't want to lose your hearing. And then also have a meter, which just helps with adjusting volumes and adjusting the limiter, so it's all right. And finally, I'll add 2 extra bars before the second measure, and I'll add some sort of percussive sound on measure 0, and this is just for lining up the videos. And after the audio is done and I'm happy with all that, I'll move on to the video. First, got another one for you. What do you call a deer with no eyes? No idea. So, for the video, I usually record in front of a green screen. I've been experimenting with going outside and shooting actual music videos lately. I did one at a graveyard and another one at a beach this month. and people seem to enjoy it, so I might do more things like that. The device I use to record is just my iPhone. I have an iPhone 11. It can shoot 4K video, and it can also record up to 60 frames per second, which is pretty dang excellent for just a phone. I'll probably get a real camera eventually when I have money to spend on that. So when I record the video, I'll play back the audio with the metronome on and just play along to the mastered audio. I'm not actually using the audio from these videos because I'm using the mastered audio. It's just to play along to, so everything's all perfectly synced up. And sometimes when I'm recording the video late at night, I'll just mime along, lip syncing if you will, just so that my neighbors don't get pissed off by hearing trumpet after dark. I don't think I even want to hear trumpet after dark. And that's pretty much it for the video recording. I'll do that for every single part. I like to look as expressive as I can in the video to make it more enjoyable for the audience. I'm trying not to be the stereotypical boring classical musician. I'm not saying classical musician is boring, it's just a stereotype, who just stands still and isn't interesting to look at. So, no offense there. Because otherwise I wouldn't be making videos if I'm going to look boring in them. I would just release the audio if there weren't any visual aspect at all. And if the audience sees that I'm having fun, hopefully they'll be having fun too. Now before we move on to the final step, what kind of tea is really hard to swallow? Reality. Alright, so the final step is to upload the videos to Final Cut and get to work on editing the videos. So I use Final Cut. Other great options are Adobe Premiere and DaVinci Resolve if you don't have a Mac. But like Sibelius and Logic, it's extremely user-friendly, and I'm all about that. Free software includes iMovie and Windows Movie Maker, but I extremely discourage that for multitrack videos because the multicam options on those are very, very, very limited, where it's just annoying and almost impossible. So if you're ever planning on making multitrack videos, buy Final Cut, Adobe Premiere, DaVinci Resolve, nothing else. Those are the three you want to get. Alright, so I'll drop the mastered audio into my primary storyline, then I'll sync up all the videos to the final audio. I add borders to make the grid patterns look perfectly quantized, because if you approximate while editing videos, it's never going to look good. I'll do whatever color corrections / color grading I need to do as well. Maybe I'll add some filters if I'm going for a certain vibe. I usually like to go all out with the video editing to make the videos as engaging as possible, but if I'm pressed for time or just have a really busy week, I'll keep it simple. For this one, I added clips from the 2018 Bohemian Rhapsody movies since I did a Queen cover, and once that's all done, I'll export the video and upload it straight to YouTube on a scheduled release to give the video time to process and render so that it's at the highest quality video for you to enjoy. That, my friends, is how I make multi-track videos. Feel free to leave any questions you have for me about this video down below, anything you're unsure of, and leave some suggestions for future tutorials you'd like to see from me too in the future, or just future videos. If there's a song you'd really like me to cover, let me know. And if you haven't already, download my free multi-track guide, because there are tips and tricks on there that I did not cover in this video. So if you want some extra free information, download my free multi-track guide. Link in the description. Do it, do it, do it. And once again, if you haven't already, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell. And if you want to support me even further, I have a Patreon donation start, only $1 a month. Thank you so much to my current Patreon donors. You're all awesome. And alright, that's all I got. See you next week.